Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Never Ignored, a football podcast. On today's episode, we'll be offering our thoughts on the Premier League's pay-per-view model, Manchester United being the best team in Paris, and Project Big Picture, but now it's in Europe. I'm Aleem, and I'm joined as always by Imti. Imti, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Can't complain. United have won 2 games since we last been here, so things are looking good.
Things are looking good indeed, and things are looking up for the podcast, guys. Thanks for all the kind of feedback and comments and views that we got on the first podcast. It was very helpful getting that information. Look forward to receiving more.
Yeah, I mean we got 35 views on our YouTube upload, which is our typical upload. Our typical amount of views for an upload is 0 to 3. So
A record-breaking.
and even stuff like so you can see 11% of people who saw the link clicked on it, which is pretty good for YouTube. And yeah, so our views increased over 999%, and same for our watch time hours. So yeah, it was nice to see a positive response to our little rebrand. And yeah, thank you for all the comments and stuff.
Very happy. Oh, we're looking forward to more, and speaking of looking forward to more, MT. The Premier League wants more. The Premier League wants 14 to 95 pence per certain games.
Yeah, so theirs is not as nice of a change as we had, but I mean, I guess everyone knows that since the lockdown and fans not being able to go to games, every game's been shown on TV and every game's been free. Well, not every game's been free, but there's been free. Those games have been free that weren't going to be originally broadcast. But now the Premier League clubs and Sky and BT have decided that they think it's worth us paying £15 a game to watch it, which I know that we have one member of our podcast crew who has paid for that. So Aleem, I don't know, was it worth it?
I would like to. So first things first. I initially had made the intention that I would not be paying £14.95. Let's be specific, because obviously that 5 pence matters. To as to whether I'll be watching the Manchester United Newcastle game. But when the day came, I asked myself, was I really doing anything tonight? I said no. I could think of worse ways of spending £15. First thing that comes to mind is spending £15 on Sheffield United versus Fulham on Sunday. And I just went for it. The first, but we'll come on to it maybe further down.
Yeah, we'll analyze the game a bit further, I guess.
But about 10 minutes into the fixture, I was a bit. Sorry, about 10 minutes. That sound makes it sound good. About 1 minute into the fixture, I was a bit, oh no, I might have wasted my money. But then, yeah.
I thought basically looking at the starting lineups, you were thinking, have I wasted my money rather than even getting into the game? But
So I made the mistake of purchasing this pay-per-view early on the Saturday, and about an hour before kickoff, seeing Dan James was in the lineup, I then began to reassess my decision. But let me give some more information on kind of this PPV model. So apparently, five fixtures per round that aren't already picked to be shown live on TV will cost £14.95, and the Premier League have said it's a interim solution, not really putting an end date on it, I don't think. In terms of voting, in terms of Premier League teams that voted for this, all 19 teams voted, bar one. Leicester City were the only team that voted against it. So good guys, Leicester City. Some of the games that I personally think, I personally think that some of the games that they've put on there are games that should have been in kind of those prime time on Sky Sports / BT Sports slots. So there's a couple games there that have already come on the PPV model, and there's one coming on Friday, Villa versus Leeds, which is was a tasty game last season or 2 seasons ago in the Championship. So I'm not entirely sure.
It's like two Premier League giants that haven't been around for a long time, right? You'd expect that to be big.
There's a bit of a story there, and then also Leicester versus Villa.
Friday night? Did you say it was Friday night that one?
Yeah, this Friday, and typically they've always aired the Sunday, the Friday nights on Sky Sports. So
Sky made a big thing about Friday night football and this and that. Even the United Newcastle last week was that late slot, the 8 o'clock kind of Saturday.
Yeah, which isn't
when you're signing up for your Sky subscription, these are the kind of things they advertise to you as part of the benefit.
So yeah, and you're completely right. And if to be honest, I kind of feel so the games I've kind of picked out that are on this new PPV model over the next coming week: Villa versus Leeds, Leicester versus Villa, which happened last week, Arsenal versus Leicester, Villa versus Southampton. So to me,
They don't like Aston Villa.
they don't like Villa and they don't like Leicester, do they? I don't know. To me, it seems, and these are they're fairly exciting teams. I think, especially
Well,
okay,
Villa are the only team with a 100% record still, right? 4 games
exactly.
played, 4 games won, 12 goals scored, and only 2 conceded.
So it's
I mean,
it's
I
absolutely
want
ridiculous.
I want to watch Villa, but I don't want to pay £15
It's
to watch them.
It's absolutely ridiculous that Villa are okay. So maybe they've put this agenda together, God knows when, and Villa probably didn't think they'd do as good. But like games like Villa versus Leeds, Leicester versus Villa, these are good games. There's a bit of a story behind it. There's a Midlands kind of angle you can put on Leicester versus Villa. Villa v Leeds against like a championship. These guys had a big battle
Yeah.
2 seasons ago. That whole Biesler incident where let them score an own goal and all that kind of stuff. There's some bad blood between the two.
Oh yeah.
It's they're interesting games, and I'm very shocked, and I think the kind of the skeptical side of me is making me think that the Premier League has kind of said, you know what, a game here or there might actually pull us in, those £14.95 punters, so let's stick it on the pay-per-view. So it's quite, it's a bit of a it's quite sad to see.
I'm starting to feel a bit bad for Villa fans. Like, let's say they already subscribed to Sky. Like, my Sky bill is £80 a month.
Yeah.
So let's assume I'm a Villa fan then, and then I'd have had to have spent £45 extra in a month just to watch the Aston Villa games,
which is absolutely ridiculous because it's not even like you're getting the content of.
Yeah, and that's not even including BT Sport. I've just mentioned Sky. So assuming you add a BT Sport subscription on for another 20, 30 quid or whatever, you're borderline £150, £200 a month you're going to be spending to watch football.
To make matters worse, when I did watch the United, the Manchester United versus Newcastle United game, there wasn't even a halftime analysis.
This is what got me. Yeah, I remember when you told me this, I was thinking, what? You've just paid £15 and they've got no.
There was no guys in the studio. There was no Patrice Evra in pain. There was no Roy Keane just saying furious things. It was literally the guys who commentated.
What's this £15 going to? Is it going £7.50 each for the clubs or what? So Sky are not taking a cut? I don't know, because you'd expect if Sky taking any money out of that, they should be putting some people on on the ground at least.
There was nothing. Yeah. It was literally the commentators speaking over highlight clips at halftime, and then at full time, it was the commentators again speaking over highlight clips. It was about maybe 5 minutes worth of analysis. Now, me personally, I wouldn't really care too much about them not putting it on, but when you're specifically spending almost £15 to watch that football game,
you've got to have some pundits there. At least two. I'm not asking for a full suite of them, but at least two guys, right? A host and a pundit. That's the least I ask for, right?
And it's quite a shame. And it's not the first time. I think there was I'm not too sure which one. There was another fixture as well where they had it on the PPV model, and people were literally, I think, tweeting saying they're just showing pictures of the stadium at halftime.
and the Newcastle United and the United game, that was at 8:00. There was no other games going on. They could have sent people there. I don't know. It's all a bit bizarre, really.
But yeah, it looks like they're handpicking what fixtures go on there and that kind of stuff. Again, the cost is, I think, for the consumer, on the consumer point of view, it's ridiculous having to pay.
I think I could kind of understand £5 maybe.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what would you have paid? What would you have said? You know what, this is a fair price.
I think 5, because then assuming worst case scenario, the team that I support is playing on PPV 4 times a month, let's say. Yeah. £20 seems okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think £20 is reasonable for 360 minutes of Premier League football.
Yeah.
More or less.
But then even then, I mean, what I read, Sky and BT, they haven't had to pay anything extra to get these games. They've not had a new TV deal where they've had to pay more money to get them. They're getting these games for free. So if they're taking any cut of it, I mean, that's just a joke, really. That they're getting the games for free. And they're charging us £15 to watch it.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. And then my mind's just gone blank on the way.
Well, I was going to say the other thing. So I mean, we've seen some Ed Woodward PR moves come out saying that he was against it, blah blah blah. But then it's like you mentioned earlier, Leicester were the only team to vote against it. So what's the point if he's coming out and saying, "Oh, we were against it," blah blah blah, and then not actually voting against it? He voted for it. It just sums him up, really, that he's trying to make himself look like the good guy when actually he's not done anything to help.
That
Um,
does sum up Ed Woodward in a line. And speaking of blockbusters that the Premier League are trying to get
yeah,
PPV money out of, let's speak about a very recent blockbuster that took place about 2 nights ago: Manchester United versus PSG.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. So the Champions League is back. Which before the game, I was starting to think, is it really the right thing to do at the moment? Have teams traveling around Europe playing each other? Especially Paris has got pretty high rates of coronavirus at the moment, and so is Manchester as well. Um, so it's really the good idea to get these guys playing. But then I quickly forgot about that when we obviously won the game.
the moment Rashford scored the goal, I said, let's null and void the competition, call it as it is.
Yeah, just call it a day there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a win for us. No, so in all seriousness, yeah, Manchester United, they continued that kind of amazing record of 2 wins now over in Paris. So in my eyes, Ole is now the king of Paris.
it was their first home defeat in the group stages since 2004, which is pretty
Wow,
crazy. I mean, I don't know how many years they were actually in the Champions League in that period, but it's a fair amount. And they've had some decent teams in the group. I'm sure they had Barca in their group recently,
they did.
uh,
Uh,
and a
um,
lot of
what my personal kind of favorite part of this whole result was Verratti last season, or the season before, sorry, came out and said, if Manchester United had played us 10 times, 9 times out of 10, we would have beat them. Um,
So now in recent times we've played them 3 times, right, and we've won 2 of the games. So that's 66% really.
yeah, so Verratti, I'd like you to fact check next time you make those statements.
Fake news, fake
Yeah.
news from Verratti. Um, I never used to be that bothered about PSG as a team, but after seeing United play them a few times, they're just a horrible team. I don't know, but I really dislike PSG now.
You know what?
Uh,
It's something that I started noticing when they were playing Liverpool in the group
yeah,
stages. So I remember when they played Liverpool, they kept rolling around and dropping to contact and surrounding the referee and screaming at him for like tiny little things to try and get players booked or sent off. And I just think, I don't know. I'm not too
it's
sure.
just embarrassing.
It, it is embarrassing, and I don't watch French league football much, so I don't know
Yeah,
if
what
that's
is it like?
normal there. I don't know. I don't know if it's kind of like just something that's accepted there, and it's not an issue, so that's why they bring it across. But honestly, it is embarrassing. I think as a professional adult to be doing that kind of stuff, especially when even though you're playing another team, there's still a person who's in the same profession as you. You would just expect them to treat each other a bit better. And I was just shocked. I'm glad
Yeah,
Neymar got
I
a
mean,
yellow
I think
card for moaning.
Mbappe was he was fine. I think I didn't really see anything from him, but Neymar led the rest of them, and like just every time there's a decision against them, they're acting like I don't know, it's the biggest injustice that's ever happened. Uh,
Who are you impressed with from the United team?
from the United team, pretty much everyone really. De Gea had one of his best performances in years.
A
Like
very long time.
years. Even from like right from the get go, he just looked right back to his best. His delivery, everything was just like what you want from him. Um, he was commanding the area. He was getting the ball out quickly, and he was actually going to people, which was good. Um, and some of the saves he pulled off were brilliant. And in that early PSG onslaught, if it wasn't for him, we could have been 2-3 nil down within 10-15 minutes. So we weathered the storm pretty well. Who else? Lindelof was fine. He didn't really make any mistakes, but I wouldn't say he necessarily stood out to me. Um,
I know a popular journalistic publication that would disagree with you on that, MT. So L'Equipe, the famous
yeah,
uh,
the guys who do the Ballon d'Or and stuff like that.
L'Equipe gave Alex Telles and Lindelof both 7 out of 10 ratings, which was the joint highest from the
That's
Manchester
the highest.
United squad. Yeah,
Seven seems fair. I would
seven out
say
of ten, which was the highest. And then for context, Neymar and Mbappe both got a 4 out of 10. I'm now using the
that,
league quip as
that, that makes sense, but I would have had Tuanzebe as a 9, De Gea as a 9, Rashford as maybe an 8, Bruno maybe about.
interestingly, they
Uh,
put Tuanzebe as a 5. For me personally, I think Tuanzebe was probably man of the match. I'd say that.
for me, it's between him and De Gea. The
I'd
for
say
me,
I'd give it to Tuanzebe purely because first of all, I'll be honest, I didn't expect him to have a good game because he's been out for so
yeah,
long. He's very young. It was his first ever start in the Champions League. So I don't know. In my head, I just didn't see it going well. I thought to myself,
Yeah,
Mbappe's going to have a field day here. Neymar will probably do some step overs past him or something. Um, but he had an incredible game. There was that moment where he made that tackle on Mbappe where he sprinted back and he just like calmly, stayed on his feet, got the ball,
that's
didn't lose a bit of balance.
that's what we've lacked for a long time. Like we're both fans of Bailly, but he's got the pace, but you almost never know what he's going to do when he gets to
No, you don't.
when
You
he
don't
gets.
know if he's going to chop the guy's leg off. More on that later when we discuss Pickford,
Yeah,
and or if he's just going to like get a very nice clean slide. You just don't know. And then with Maguire,
no idea. But with Tuanzebe, he just looked so composed. Even on the ball, he was brilliant, and the pace he showed to keep up with Mbappe and whatnot, it was brilliant.
it was impressive considering Mbappe is considered to be one of the fastest players, kind of, in the Champions League. And
I
then
don't know where they got five out of. Maybe they changed the scale for him. Did they mean 5 out of 5?
I mean 5 out of 3, and then to something else I kind of I digged up earlier. So Ryan Giggs believes Tuanzebe can play central midfield, and he says that because he praises how well he reads the game. So for those that don't know, Giggs actually coached Tuanzebe when he was the assistant under Van Gaal, and Tuanzebe made his
Yeah,
debut that
I read, I
season.
read, I read that quote. I don't want to hear any of that. I don't want him worrying about what his best position is. I think
Yeah,
to me he looks like a very good centre back, and that's the position we need someone in at the moment. So I think Giggsy needs to keep his opinions to himself on this one.
I would suggest that Giggsy might make some questionable decisions, so I wouldn't trust his logic. Um, but very interestingly as well, it was the first time Neymar had failed to score in 4 consecutive matches in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean in their run to the final last year, he was pretty poor, if you ask me.
He was very poor.
I
He was
watched, I
very
watched,
poor.
watched quite a few of those games. He missed so many
So
chances
many.
that you expect someone of his
He was
supposed.
he was very poor. I think I was actually surprised because it was the first time I was probably keeping a better eye on him because obviously of like how highly he's praised and stuff,
Yeah,
and he just didn't have any composure. Like he was really good at doing all the cool looking stuff, and he was really good at that, like the best. But he just wasn't good at doing the clinical stuff. So he was kind
yeah.
of like
I
a
think to me, his whole time at Paris, it just seemed like he just can't be bothered. Almost like he just thinks that he's so good that no matter what he does, he'll pull it off successfully. And then when it comes to the big games, then he can't turn it back on because he's just been so lazy and not bothered for the rest for the rest of the time.
speaking of kind of Brazilians. What about our new Brazilian at left back? Wow,
Yeah,
Telles
he
can
was good.
cross a ball.
Some of those crosses were like just amazing. Like the corners he was taking, the whip and the bend, and like it was causing absolute havoc. Um, it was one of those things where you have to wonder if Maguire was there, he probably could have had a hat trick at the way Telles or Talise, I don't know how you pronounce it, was putting those balls in.
Ho-
And he looked fairly solid as well. Obviously,
Honestly,
it helped having the 5 at the back, but it
Honestly,
was a good.
I forgot. Honestly, I just forgotten like how good it looks to see a ball actually bend in the air on a cross. It's been so long, and yeah,
I
honestly, it
think
was very.
Bruno's set pieces improved us dramatically. But his are more traditional, I guess. Yeah, they don't have the whip and the bend that Telles was putting in.
The benefit is this Telles can now. The good news is now Telles can whip it in on the other foot, so for corners on the
That's
other
it.
side,
So
he's an
we've got
out
a
swinger.
left-footed option now, because we've not really had a left-footed set piece taker for
This
quite a while
so
now.
this makes me think actually the five at the
Massive
three slash.
definitely not first choice, I guess, but
Yeah, so the kind of 3/5 at the back, whatever you want to call it, that Ole tends to operate in these big games where the teams come onto us a lot. It seems to be quite successful for us because we have had good results against big teams. If you take out the odd blip here and there, but it's very consistent. Well, I don't know
yep.
what do you think about you deploying that on a regular basis? Because I know Arsenal do that fairly regularly, no matter who the quality of the opposition is, and they're quite successful with it. So maybe that's a potential because we've seen what
I
Shaw.
think it's tough because I guess before we had fullbacks that weren't the most attacking. I mean, sure, even when he was playing left centre back, he did pretty well going forward.
He did, yeah.
Obviously, Wan-Bissaka scored in 50% of his last 2 games, which is a pretty good return. Um, but even he seems like he's getting more confident as he's going forward.
I remember
So
Saka,
now
yeah.
now that we have Telles, who does like to get forward, you can see that formation maybe being played a bit more. Just the worry is that against teams that sit back, is it too many players in the middle of the pitch? I don't know, like 3 centre backs, the 2 midfielders, the number 10, the strikers. It might be all a bit too narrow for me. That would be my concern. Against teams like PSG, and I think we employed against City last year and stuff, it works brilliantly because we can hit them on the break with our
Yeah.
countering and stuff. And some of Bruno's passing yesterday was like, it makes you think like, I mean, I really rate Pogba, even though he's going through a bit of a tough time. But when Bruno was spraying those long balls around, you start to wonder, do we even need Pogba in the team?
You do wonder that because even with the addition of Van der Beek, you can also argue that we've kind of got a creative force there now as well. But it's a good question to ask.
Because when you look at their particular abilities, the one thing that traditionally you'd think Pogba is better than everyone at is his long balls. But some of the ones Bruno was playing were brilliant. I guess he can't do it all the time. But I don't know. Pogba's got to work. He's got to work hard to get back in the team at the moment. I know Ollie said that he's not been playing because he picked up a knock for France, but everyone in that midfield had good games. Fred, I think he ran them. He covered the most ground out of any player on both teams. Closely followed by Bruno, closely followed by McTominay. That's the kind of work rate you need in that area of the pitch for us at the moment. And they all played the full. I think Bruno went off in the 90th minute, and then Scott, McTominay, and Fred, they played 95 minutes between them. Each. You want to see that kind of work rate, which Pogba hasn't traditionally shown. But yeah, it's good. It's a good problem to have at the moment, I think.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. So elsewhere in the Champions League, Liverpool, Bayern, City, Barca, Juve all won as expected. Borussia Dortmund lose, unlucky Sancho. Real Madrid, I'm just kidding. Real Madrid lose as well, and quite ironically, before the game, they sent a tweet out saying Real Madrid have never lost to a Ukrainian team in the Champions League. Kind of jinxed themselves.
Yeah, I remember there was one before when I think there might have been pre-Twitter, but Barca were playing Arsenal in the Champions League, and everyone on TV was making a big deal about how Ibrahimovic had never scored against an English team or something like that, and obviously he then went and scored 2 goals. You're like, it's like sometimes when you say these things, you're just asking for someone to go and
it's a good point. Maybe the Twitter admins at these respective teams should avoid digging out these statistics that end up jinxing them. Save it for after the game.
After the game, exactly. If you beat them or draw again, then you can say, oh yeah, by the way, we've never lost to a Ukrainian team. There you go. But they're trigger happy, I guess, with their tweets.
There you go. So speaking of European football, I think some guys have had a great idea. Why don't we play this all the time? This is the best thing that we could do. So kind of this European Super League kind of document has been, I don't know what the word is, leaked, purposely sent out, who knows? And it contains some information on proposals for moving forward in the world of football. So Liverpool and Man United obviously have been put at the spearhead as the guys that are responsible for this because it links back to the big picture stuff. Quite interestingly as well, there's been some active involvement from a few other remaining clubs of the Big Six. So there's some speculation as to who makes up.
There was only five out of the six, right? So it's interesting to be.
It is interesting.
I guess City are the smallest club out of the lot, so maybe they weren't invited. I don't know.
I've got a question for you. Who would you say out of Arsenal, Chelsea, City, and Spurs? Who gets the cut? Who doesn't make it into the 5?
Arsenal and Chelsea. Well, I don't know. Chelsea have to be in there, right?
I think as a default they'd get in there because they've won the Champions League, so they have to.
Yeah. Arsenal, you'd say would be the biggest out of the other three: Arsenal, City, Spurs. But they haven't been in the Champions League for a long time.
And Spurs have been in a final not long ago.
Yeah. So who misses out of those three?
Oh, so it's a tough question.
The way Levi is, you'd think he would be involved in something like this. I feel like that's something he'd be involved in.
Much so.
So I would say Spurs are in there, and I guess City kind of have to be. So I'd say maybe Arsenal are the ones who are missing out.
Possibly Arsenal. So some further information on kind of what this European Super League thing looks like. So according to Sky News, a Wall Street bank have assembled almost a 4.6 billion funding package. So they're strongly enticing.
You need the Americans, right?
And they're aiming to get this to start in the season occur in 2022, so our World Cup season, kind of the format of how it would look is each team plays each other twice a season, both home and away, and then the top ranked teams haven't specified up to what spot would compete in a kind of knockout tournament. So then probably assuming what we saw last at the end of Champions League last year. What the information that has come out is UEFA haven't backed it, unsurprisingly, because I'm assuming this I'm assuming this competition would write off essentially the Champions League. And I've also got a quick little note. Former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher summed his feelings up succulently on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll maybe post a link to it in the notes rather than
quote tweeting the story from saying, "Please, F off." So I'm glad Jamie offered his view on that.
What I think this is. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm assuming that this league would have no promotions and relegations, to be honest. Because if it's got American backing, I mean, that's how they do their leagues. There's no promotion, there's no relegation. And I'm not surprised they're involved, because I heard this thing a while ago, like American owners are reluctant to invest in the Premier League, for example, because there's no salary cap. Because they buy their teams to run as a business, which we've seen with Arsenal, Liverpool, and United. That the American owners, they want something out of it, right? Whereas when you look at the other owners like Abramovich and City's owner, I'm not saying that I don't know anything. I'm not commenting on them on a personal level, but in terms of what they do with the club, they just put money in. They don't really take money out. Right?
Yeah, so, it's very true. Yeah.
So it's unsurprising that there's American involvement, because you can see that clubs like Liverpool are having a good few years, but Liverpool, United, Arsenal as well, even Chelsea actually, for the last maybe 5-6 years, they've been in and out of the Champions League, which obviously we've seen how much that hits clubs' revenue. So I guess they want to get rid of that issue, right? They want to make more money. They want to guarantee that they're going to be playing the best teams every year. So I'm guessing for them, it's more lucrative to say come 18th in a European Super League every year than miss out on Champions League qualification here and there. That would be my guess. I don't think anyone's thinking about the fans in this at all, probably, because you can imagine that this is going to be an expensive thing to follow your club around. Like, I don't know, have they said about how many teams would be in it?
So the proposal is either 18 or 20. Now, what's really interesting is you mentioned that the fans haven't had a look in at this. It's true. Why would you want to cheer for, let's just say the example, Chelsea finish 18th? Why on earth would you be, why would you want to watch your team finish 18th? And why would you feel about that?
The beauty of the Champions League is, like, even if you're having a rubbish season, so like Chelsea, when they won the Champions League, for example, they were having a poor season domestically. But because it becomes knockout so early on, literally anything can happen.
Yeah.
If you have a league situation throughout the whole, they always say, like, the league table doesn't lie, right? Like, you can't hide in a league format. If you get off to a bad start, you're gonna have like another 20 games playing the best teams in Europe and getting smashed all the time, and But yeah, I think the amount of money that's being quoted, I think to me it does sound like coming 18th in that would be more lucrative than qualifying for the Europa League and doing well in that.
What would be interesting is I'd like to see, and obviously it's probably very early stages, how it would impact so for example, the teams like Leicester, Villa, Everton, the guys that are, in that kind of category now where they're not top 6, but, they could possibly get there. How does it affect
they're going to be, they've got to be against it, right?
So now do they kind of exist in a league that is kind of almost like, I don't know, the Championship or step down above the top tier, and do they have their own kind of battle amongst other teams?
So some of the things I've heard is maybe, let's use United as an example. United would end up having a squad of like 40 players maybe,
and competing in both, or
in both, yeah. And so like then the best of the best would always be playing in the European one, and then sort of not quite the B team, but a mixture would then be competing in the Premier League or something like that. I guess if it replaces the Champions League, then in theory there might not be that many more games per season, so maybe the Premier League stays as it is. But we also saw that Project Big Picture where they were talking about cutting the Premier League to 18 teams, for example. You can see how those link in, right? If you're going to get more games in this European Super League, you want to have less in your domestic competition.
Yeah, and there's a scrap of the League Cup as well, and the Community
After the
Shield.
League Cup, this seems to then indicate that you'll be competing in both because you want use your squad for less games really rather than
I think if we
so
look
the
at
idea
this,
is to be playing more lucrative games rather than I guess they're if we look at the bottom of the table at the moment, I guess the games against Burnley, Sheffield United, Fulham, no offense, aren't as lucrative for a club like United as playing Real Madrid, Barcelona, etc.
I think as well. So the way I see it, if we look at it as football, because that's what it is at the end of the day, I don't think this benefits the Premier League. I think it benefits the other leagues where traditionally, every week fixtures they're not exactly breathtaking, right? Whereas in the Premier League, you do get games where you can lose to a team that's 15th or 16th or whatever place in the table, and it's not expected. Whereas I think traditionally in the kind of Italian, the French, the German, the Spanish league. Okay, Spanish league's probably the most competitive because they've got about 3 teams that are vying for it. But in the other leagues, it's very
The others
difficult.
you know who the top four are going to be at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Basically.
and it's a massive shock if, for example, Barca drop points to a team that are 18th, or if Juve drop points to a team that are 14th in the Serie A. It's a big shock. Whereas in the Premier League, it's not. It's not a big shock. It's kind of like, the team needs to work better. There isn't headlines about it unless you get smashed like 6-1 or 7-2. Like
Except or 7-2 by Aston Villa, something like that.
yeah. So, but the point is that I think that in terms of the actual quality of football, I don't know. I think almost it would get a bit boring watching your team play.
Yeah, no, I agree. Part of the excitement about the Champions League, for example, is when you draw someone like PSG in your group, you don't play PSG every year.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
the diehard, obviously, let's assume the fans are allowed in. The diehard fans get to see a new stadium. They get to
travel.
see some
Yeah.
football places. But if you're playing the same teams every year, it becomes like we had this issue last year where we faced Wolves about I think it was 116 times last season.
Yeah, approximately.
You get sick of the sight of them by the end.
Yeah, and I think the baseline as well. So this kind of super level of teams like Juve and Bayern, that would just become a baseline, and it would just.
Exactly.
What's the excitement then?
Even like looking at last year, all right, Bayern you could say are some of the usual suspects for the latter stages of the Champions League, but with Bayern PSG almost felt like a new kind of final because PSG hadn't got there before.
Yeah.
And I can't remember Bayern and PSG playing too much, so it felt like something new because we're used to for the last 5 years. Obviously, Bayern that aberration where Liverpool won the league. You expect your Real Madrids, Barcelonas, those kind of guys. They're always going to be in the final. So to have something like PSG, Bayern, it was refreshing. I guess even you could argue Liverpool, Spurs, even though that was a terrible final. It was refreshing to see some new teams around them. But if you're just playing the same people every year, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. I think there are issues in the Champions League, but I kind of liked the sort of one leg knockouts they had last year. If I was going to redo something, I think that's what I would do. I'd say you choose maybe a neutral venue every year for the last 8, and then you just have one leg knockouts. Again, it becomes tricky then for fans to follow the teams, etc. Again, but if you're going to revamp it, those one leg games were so much better than some of the 2 leg ties we've seen before.
You know what? I don't know. So my natural instinct is to say the one-legged games were better because it's just you get a result after the 90 minutes. You don't have to wait a week or two for the next fixture, etc., etc. But then there's nothing better than making a comeback in the second leg, like when we did it against PSG, when Liverpool did it against Barca. Like I don't know, as a fan, when your team makes a comeback,
those are very rare, right?
They are very rare, but they're unforgettable.
I guess that's why it makes it better. But then you also get 2-legged ties like Atletico Liverpool last year. And I'm not complaining because Liverpool were knocked out, but Atletico literally defended for 200 minutes.
So Atletico do all the games.
Yeah, they defended for like 200 minutes, turned it on for 5 minutes in extra time, and then that was that. I mean, it's effective. I'm not begrudging them that. Like if we did it, I wouldn't be complaining, but it wasn't much of a spectacle, right?
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Some of these one-legged knockout games, they were really exciting because the teams knew that they have to get defending right, but they had to go for it as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one.
It's very.
I'm definitely not in favor of this European Super League or whatever, but definitely up for maybe something new in Europe.
We'll have to keep our ears peeled for any further information that comes out on that.
Yeah.
Let's reel it back in. We've discussed the Champions League. Let's take a little quick brief overview over the Premier League over the last week. Kind of big news: Virgil van Dijk injury. He's suspected to be out for more than a season now. The latest news is that he will be very lucky to make it this season.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. ACL at his age is not it's not great, and obviously we don't wish injuries on anyone, no matter who they play for. So it's disappointing to see that. And I don't know, what did you think of the tackle
So
of Pickford?
So first of all, yeah, I'm the same as you. Let me just put it out on the table. I think Van Dijk is one of the best defenders in the world. I'm very envious that we don't have him. It reminds me a lot of Rio Ferdinand. The tackle was honestly one of the most stupid things. Okay, I've seen Pickford do quite a few stupid things at this point. I think all of us have. It was just an incredibly insane tackle to make, and I know obviously I'm assuming he didn't intend to kind of take him out, but it was just as a goalkeeper, I don't know what you launching
Well,
yourself at someone like that. Let's say if Van
that's
Dijk
the
was
thing.
onside, you'd assume Pickford thought he was onside, otherwise he wouldn't have committed that much to the challenge. He would
You'd
have
hope
just
so.
given him a penalty. He would have just given him a penalty. Yeah. So as a
There's a
goalkeeper,
few things, but yeah, usually we always say, oh yeah, they never intended to hurt them, blah blah blah. But I mean, you play in goal quite a bit. If you're in the penalty area, one of your major advantages over the outfield player is you can use your hands, right?
yeah.
And so you would probably, I mean, I'm assuming would dive hands first, and try and push it out, or even if you make contact, then it's probably less damaging to anyone that
So,
way.
me personally, I'm assuming that most keepers would probably also have a very similar mindset. If I've come flying out at a player like that, it is
Yeah,
purely because I do want to get the ball, but I also want that player to know that I'm there, and I don't want him to come into my box again.
yeah,
So of course, and obviously Van Dijk, he's a big, strong player, very
yeah.
physical in the air, very dominant in the air. So Pickford's probably thought this is my chance to let Van Dijk know I'm here as well, so that when they get a corner next, he's a bit more hesitant in charging at
Yeah.
the ball and
I just,
jumping
I
into the air
just,
with
I
me.
just think it was just a strange situation because the ball was in the air, right? It's not like Van Dijk had the ball under control and
Yeah,
and was gonna. If he had it under control and he was running at Pickford, then you could almost kind of understand him going feet first.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it being in the air, surely you just got to go and try and punch the ball or something, not
I think
not fly. It wasn't even 2 footed. I don't know how to describe the tackle. I mean, you have to see it to understand, I guess.
I think when the ball's in the air and you've lunged your legs at it, you're in the the wrong place. You're
Yeah,
doing it wrong. You're for
um,
whatever reason he's led in like that. I know he's a bit of an erratic goalkeeper,
yeah.
um, and he makes
Has
kind
he
of
said anything since? I've not heard if he's made a statement or anything.
so quite. I don't know. Quite. I don't know if humorously is the right word, but Sky Sport. I get these notifications of Sky Sports on my mobile phone, and
Yeah.
just before we started recording, I got a notification that said, "Carlo Ancelotti says Everton's Jordan Pickford is in quotation marks really sad."
Sorry, I read that. Yes.
He said really sad, and it was a mistimed contact. So I think that's his kind of statement on it. And obviously, again, I don't think he's tried to injure him. I do think he's tried to let him know he's there, and by that I mean he's tried to put something in on him, but not obviously put the guy out for months. Probably at worst,
Yeah.
just give him a little knock and make him hobble a bit during the game. It is a big shame for Liverpool. I think everyone has said that. Part of the reason of their success again was because of Alisson and Van Dijk, and that the fact that they didn't get any injuries. They're now both injured.
Yep.
So it's going to be a very interesting, I think, few months for Liverpool, and we'll see, I guess, how much they can cope, especially with Gomez being taken off at half time in the Villa game because of how poorly he performed. For him to now probably be first choice alongside Fabinho / Matip, who
Well, Matip injured now as well.
yeah, Matip
Yeah.
didn't play last night because he had picked up
Yeah.
something. It's gonna, I don't know, it's gonna be a very interesting time. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we see James Milner at centre back. Um, and yeah, it's going to
Yes.
be interesting. Speaking of some
Um,
kind of other big names this week, Gareth Bale made his return to the Premier League.
yep.
Came on with the Spurs being 3-0 up, ended up drawing the game 3-all. Thanks to that Lanzini screamer in the last minute. A very interesting return to
Unbelievable.
football. It was a very interesting return to football. Peter Cech
Yep.
is back in the Chelsea squad.
Yeah, that was bizarre as well. I thought
He,
you were joking when you told me that, but
he's named as Chelsea's fourth goalkeeper behind Caballero, Kepa, Chelsea's most expensive player ever, Kepa, and Mendy. He was there at the club for 11 years, won 13 trophies. quite I don't know, quite cool if he ever plays a game. I thought at
True.
this point he was gone. I was watching again, as I do in my spare time. Sometimes watching I was watching some videos of Chelsea's goalkeeper training, and I noticed, I think it was a month or two ago, he was quite active in that training. He was there in the
Right.
full
Even though
training
he's
gear.
supposed to be like director of football or whatever it is. Or
Yeah, he was there in the full training gear, and he was doing the same exercises that the goalkeepers were. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. I assumed he would probably be somewhere with a shirt and tie on and sat in an office because he was of
yeah,
his role. But yeah, maybe that's probably shown why Lampard's put him in the kind of squad. It's unlikely he's going to make a start. But you never know. Stranger things have happened in football.
true.
Some other notable absences due to this kind of Premier League 25-man squad announcement: Phil Jones, Romero, Özil, and Socrates. What do you think of those?
Um, the Jones or Romero ones, I don't really get it because obviously they want to sell them, but surely if they're going to stay, you're paying them whatever amount of money it is. Just put them in the squad, right? You never know when, especially the Romero one, because I mean, Lee Grant knows he's never going to play a Premier League game anyway, right? If worst comes, imagine De Gea and Henderson get injured, who are you going to want to call on, Romero or Grant, right? Even if Romero's not happy, I'm sure he's going to do a better job. The other
Was
one, similar thing, bizarre, right? Like you're paying him however much money, he's clearly not going to cancel his contract. You never know that you might need him. He's got to be better than Willock, etc., that have been have been registered.
I would absolutely love to know what Özil has done behind the scenes for him to warrant the treatment. Because from an external point of view, he seems like he hasn't done much wrong, right? I know he had that kind of
Can't do
connection.
that. He's not the player. He's not the player that he was. Blah blah blah. He maybe not. He maybe doesn't give 100% anymore. But again, if you're going to be paying him for that long, just put him in the squad at least. You never know when
Yeah,
what he can come up with.
because at this point he can now only make appearances for Arsenal under 23s, which
Yeah, that's it. Which
it's a
is
bit of
just
a
a waste. It's a waste of time for everyone.
it's a bit of a crazy decision, and you're
Yeah.
spending 350 allegedly K a week, and I guess Gunnosaurus has got a job back off him, so that's quite pleasant. But
Well, I never know what happened. I never didn't find out what happened with it. I know he offered to pay for it, but I didn't hear anything from Arsenal.
who knows?
So
On the
who
point
knows? Who knows?
on Lee Grant and Romero, I think I haven't looked at the complete makeup of the squad, so I don't know who's in and who's not.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Grant was included because of the quota that's needed for homegrown players. I'm not too sure, but if
I don't think we'd have an issue with that. I feel like United out of all clubs would be all right on homegrown.
if that's the
Um,
case, then not putting Romero in is a bit ridiculous considering
yeah,
how kind of loyal and he hasn't really kicked up a fuss. I know very recently
yeah.
there's been some stuff in the papers, which I don't blame him about, right? Because the guy didn't
Even
really
that,
want.
even that was his wife who posted on
Yeah, it was
Instagram. It
his
wasn't
wife.
him.
Yeah,
It wasn't him.
I can't imagine he was too happy with that, but who knows? But again, ridiculous to not put him in the squad. Jones, okay, injury prone, but then why offer him such a long contract? If
He's got 3 years left, right? At least to protect his value, put him in the squad, give the impression that he's he's wanted, right? Because now you can imagine negotiations in January. There's if someone is interested, they're just going to offer basically next to nothing because they're like, well, you're not going to play him anyway. You might as well sell him to us.
exactly,
So it's strange decisions all around, really.
strange decisions
Speaking of
all
strange,
around.
speaking of strange decisions, I guess we didn't really touch upon it with the Virgil van Dijk thing. But how do you think VAR's been in the last week in the Premier League? If you had to give it a ranking out of 10?
If I had to give it a ranking out of 10, and if 10 was the performance that we saw from the referee in the Man United
Yeah,
PSG
he was
game,
very good actually. I'll give him that.
he's probably the best referee I've
Other
seen in a long
other
time.
than him not pointing to the spot when he gave the penalty, which was a bit confusing. Everything else he did was basically spot on.
It was confusing for everyone. When he blew, I thought, is he giving him a card for diving? Yeah. So if I say 10 is, every single decision absolutely spot on, and 0 the opposite, I don't know. I'd say 9. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because the only reason I'm giving it not the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because for me a 10 would be every single decision is correct. But to not send off Pickford but then send off Richarlison after the whistle's blown for an earlier foul, I don't understand what the rule was, right? So they cut off. They said it wasn't a foul on Van Dijk.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bookable offence or whatever because the whistle had gone for offside. But then Richarlison, the whistle had gone for a foul in the build-up, and then he smashed into Thiago. But then you've just given him a card for something that's happened after the whistle's gone. So I don't know what the rule is, right? Is it once the whistle goes, everyone can just slide tackle each other and it's fine? Or what? I don't know. I don't know what the ruling is.
For me, I'm kind of feel like just based on the Liverpool game alone, it should be like a 3. 9, I think. I don't know. I think you're being very generous too.
We've got two different scales here.
But yeah, I don't know. It's I
I
think
think
well maybe I guess the issue already with VAR itself is with the people running it, right?
exactly
Some
that's what
of
it
the
is.
even like I mean I'm as biased as they come, but I don't know how they decided that there was Van Dijk was offside. I don't know how they decided Mane was offside for the Liverpool disallowed goal.
So with the Mane
Um,
one, actually, this is my view. So I'm looking at the pictures from the offside decision. Okay, so technically speaking, right? If we be completely binary about the offside, either on or off, he's
yeah,
off purely based on the fact that his top of his like below his out shoulder joint or something is tiny bit in front. But I also think that there should also be a common sense factor put into this, and there
yeah.
should be a common
I
sense
thought
factor of
I thought that's what they changed because I remember last year there was a ton of these like armpit offsides they
yeah.
called them.
And I think the
Um,
common sense factor should ask the question: does this really give the striker an advantage? Because I don't think it does. Because he hasn't scored with that body part. He hasn't used that body part to like nudge a man off. He hasn't used it. He's gone with his feet. So personally, I think that there should be. I don't know. There should be a leeway of like I don't know 5% of the person's body, or God 1%, 2%. So it's start. So we can eliminate these stupid toe
yeah,
and elbow.
that's the thing. I think the danger with well, I think this the thing we've highlighted there. You saying about the common sense. I think that's my biggest issue with VAR in the first place. Is like so obviously the goal line technology. I know it made a mistake last year once, but that's like 1 out of like 100 times, right?
Very true. Yep.
That's a very clear yes or no answer, right?
Yep.
But every decision that VAR makes is still subjective.
Agree.
So if you still got humans on the other end making that decision, it's pointless because you're better off spending the time and effort on making the actual officials that are refereeing the game, getting them better at their job, rather than putting people who are equally, or some of them are probably worse at the. Like, I mean, refereeing is a hard job. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying, like, for example, some of the decisions you wonder like, what are you doing? So if you're putting people at that same skill level or worse making the decision for VAR, it's not going to change anything. You're still going to get these decisions which are ridiculous that people are going to argue about.
The,
So the
the
only way you can do it if there's some sort of technology that the technology is making the decision, but that's not the case with VAR. So I don't see the point in it at all. To be honest,
the thing is, there's been a very kind of clear shift in how they use the VAR. So I think when they first introduced it, anytime the referee did anything, if it was wrong, the VAR would correct it. Whereas I think as of this season / towards the end of last
but
season, anything they keep using the clear and obvious clause where,
I
and
feel like they
that
change
doesn't mean
their mind
anything.
every week.
Yeah,
I feel like they change their mind every week. It's like one week they'll say, "All right, we're going to overturn everything." Then next week they get criticised for that. They say, "Oh, the referee doesn't get enough respect now." Then the next week they don't overturn anything.
honestly,
Um,
I think it gets to a point where they have a weekly call on a Monday morning with all the
yeah,
referees on it, and they say, "Guys, what
week.
did we mess up this weekend?" And they pull out what they messed up that weekend, and they say, "All right, this weekend, let's do the opposite." And
Exactly, and then they mix up the opposite, and then they say, "All right, we'll go back to the other way," and it's just
the thing is, like, okay, they've clearly changed the handball ruling now. So at the start of the season, it was anytime it touches a hand, regardless of the context, it's a penalty. And because of that, Liverpool won a game against Leeds because they got a pen off it. Now they've obviously changed that. They've obviously said, there needs to be some kind of intent. There's definitely been a change because you're not seeing it happen as much. But the difference is that at the end of the season, that's still plus 3 points in the favor of the team that got that penalty. Um, no matter how they've changed how they interpret it or whatnot. So it is, I don't know, it's a bit crazy. I think that it's not consistent. If you're gonna put rules in, they need to be consistent at least. And for whatever reason, the referees interpret it for different reasons, and they deploy it in the way that they want to deploy it during that game. I don't know if it's
which that is my whole issue with VAR. Is it's just again, it's just down to that person who's sat behind the screen, and it's not so. We were told it was going to take out all the debate, but it just hasn't.
I think a
It just
possible solution is if there's an open line on the comms between the referees and the VAR. They do it in rugby; it works very well because it
yeah,
gives.
definitely there's a lack of transparency between.
I think they should
Um,
do that, and I think the reason they're not doing it is because they want to protect the profession, which is fair enough.
yeah.
They
It's
do
even
have.
it's even worse in Europe. In the Champions League, they don't even show the replays to the to the fan.
They do that, don't they? And then also, there's still those two guys on the line, goal line, that we don't really know what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the best solution would be to get open comms on what they're saying, because then at least as a viewer, as a pundit, as a someone who works at the club, you've got some sort of justification as to why they've done what they've done, and it's not just them being insane, because that's what it can be perceived as. But yeah.
Yeah, what can you do? But yeah, so we've run a bit long this week. So we hit 50 minutes, which is not bad. But we've covered everything we wanted to. So we will be back next week, I guess. So we've got quite a big Premier League weekend this week, and there's some more Champions League games, I think. So yeah, if you enjoyed the episode, do the usual. Leave us some comments on Apple Podcast reviews. I think Spotify you can comment now as well, and YouTube as well. That'd be good. And yeah, otherwise we will see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.